Welcome to the Toronto Real Estate Podcast. Today, we are going to talk about a super interesting topic, especially if you are a buyer or potentially looking at investing or purchasing in the real estate market anytime in the near future. We're going to talk about top mistakes Toronto buyers make in a downward market. And what's interesting about this conversation is we work primarily on the seller side. So we're going to be able to talk from the perspective of mistakes we see buyers and buyer agents make when they're submitting offers and their expectations, as well as just talking about the trials and tribulations of the 8 agents on our team when working with buyers and how they're winning and where they're sometimes running into challenges. So this is going to be a great conversation for those who are looking to make moves in the Toronto market. My name is Ralph Fox. I am the broker of record and co-founder of Fox Marin. And today we have my lovely partner in crime, Kori Marin, joining us. Kori is a broker and co-founder of Fox Marin as well. Kori, so glad to see you today.
So glad to see you too, Ralph.
We see each other a lot.
I know, we do. And we just got back from vacation, so we are ready to go. And I just do have one personal question to ask our viewers. I seem to be suffering from some crazy, out of the blue, seasonal allergies. So I did not do crack before we joined the podcast today. I just have like super watery eyes and like my nose is exploding. So if you have any solutions out there for things that work this time of year for you, for like pollens and grasses and trees and stuff, please let me know in the comment section below, because this is the first time I'm getting super blasted and it feels like I'm super sick, but like without the sickness. So there you go. That's all I wanted to tell everyone. Let's dive into this conversation. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Well, thank you, Cora. And here's to a speedy recovery from your allergies.
Okay.
I do have a secret weapon, which I shared with you. So we'll see how that works over time.
Okay.
Okay. So let's talk about top mistakes buyers are making in a downward market. Now, many people looking at purchasing properties will become very aware of conversations with their friends, their family members, and their opinions on the market. And of course, the media, which is just going to be constantly negative no matter what the circumstance. Having a really good agent who's tenured and experienced in the market obviously is going to be very helpful. But from your lens, Kori, what are you seeing and what are your feelings about people who are looking to purchase a property and thinking that they have all the power as a buyer? Is that true?
I think it really depends. So it's a really good question. And I think there's a lot of nuance to the question and nuance to the answer. So certainly, I think we're trending more in a buyer's market, particularly as our viewers will understand in the condo sector, perhaps not in the low-rise sector. And again, this is dependent on so many things. Seller expectation. Where is it located? What did they price at? What is the seller's pricing strategy? Are they holding back on offers? Are you competing with other people? So this isn't like a slam dunk answer, which I can give you a yes or no equation in this particular case. I do think there's not these crazy deals to be had out there that the media is letting on to. And I also don't think sellers are willing right now to give away their properties. I think you might find more of that style of behavior and aggressive negotiation on the condo side. But I think there's a lot more goes into the acquisition or buying a property beyond price. So I don't want you to overestimate your buying power in this market right now. You have to be really competent about what's going on. What is the property value in comparison to other ones? What have other properties on the street sold for? What have other properties in the building sold for recently? You want to be looking at recent trends, recent patterns. How much has the neighborhood gone up in value over the last year? How much has it gone down in value over the last year? And what are the other components in terms of your acquisition that you're looking for beyond just the price? And we can talk about that a little bit more, but there's other concessions to be had. Do you want to include conditions, extra due diligence? Are there things that you can include in your offer that you might not be able to offer in other markets? Your closing date, how important is that you close earlier versus later? Asking for particular repairs to be done before the closing. So there's other things involved in this as well. However, I don't think that you're going to be able to score something that's perhaps $200,000 to $300,000 less than the list price, as much as you're seeing some of these TikTok videos out there that look like there's deals like that to be had.
I think that's really good feedback. One of the things for our viewers is we're speaking primarily about the Toronto, central, and downtown market. The outskirts are a little bit of a different story, and it's always why we've told our clients when you're looking to purchase or invest in Toronto real estate, central and downtown Toronto are really blue chip. And we're seeing that in this downturn where relative to the other areas, which saw tremendous highs during COVID as people were leaving the city, central and downtown Toronto will always hold its value. And we're seeing that right now, especially more so on the freehold side, but even we're seeing a resilience on the condo side as well. One of the things that we joke about with our clients or on our team or in our meetings is I think the greatest opportunity we have in our market right now, comparative to past markets, is you can actually have an opportunity to buy a property you like. The Toronto market has been so competitive for so long. It's that we've seen so many buyers, well, at least I can get something. Well, it sort of fits my needs. Well, it kind of fits my investment parameters. I guess I'll take it and figure out a way to make it work. There is opportunity right now to actually buy a property you actually like and actually have the ability to negotiate rather than compete against 5, 10, 15, 20 offers. And so I think a lot of the opportunity currently in this environment is to actually move forward with something you're excited about and actually have the opportunity to negotiate a price with a seller and not have to deal with 5 or 10 competing offers. But always remember, especially in the freehold market, if you see a property where there is opportunity or there's value, you're probably not the only person thinking it. And if you don't move quickly, somebody else is going to snap up that property. So on the freehold side, you should always be a little bit paranoid, but try to set yourself up where you can negotiate and put in those conditions and actually be able to see if you can get movement on the price to a point where you feel like you're getting a bit of an opportunity, which is always something you should be looking for as a buyer. And I think that's the unique side of what this opportunity in this downward market is preventing itself with. But there are no fire sales. And I think you're going to end up, if you start lowballing, way below list value or way below market value on properties. Again, on the freehold side, you're just going to end up pissing off a seller and probably having them swear to never want to deal with you, even if you come back with a more reasonable offer. So always be measured about the current environment and value of a property. And I would try and proceed trying to negotiate more favorable terms, buying a property that you like, but not necessarily stealing it the way TikTok would have you think. And then on the condo side, I think even if you look at prices, they're still remaining resilient. You're seeing over $700,000 average price of a condo, despite everything that you're seeing happening in the market. And I think that's determinant of is that there is no panic selling. And most of the sellers who are selling for various reasons, but not under that extreme duress, which would force them to literally give a property away. And I think that's why you're seeing the resiliency in condo prices, despite the 7.5 months or whatever it is of inventory on the market. And so, yes, there are opportunities, especially relative to where we've seen the market before in the past on the condo side. There's lots of opportunities to negotiate, but you're just not seeing, except in those extreme examples, people just giving away properties because they're not under duress to do so. And if they were, we would see prices drop significantly lower than they have up until this point in time.
I want to toss an idea out here for you, Ralph, but I think on the condo side in specific, I think if buyers are looking for an opportune time to negotiate, I would look at properties where the seller has held the condo for 5, 10, 15
It's a
years,
good
where
point.
you know that the seller has more equity in the property than a seller that perhaps that bought obviously in the height of the market. So if somebody bought their condo 12 years ago and now they're looking to divest, they might have a better appetite to negotiate at a lower price because they've already built some significant equity in the property, and they're happy to take perhaps the
Yeah.
$300,000 worth of profit from the property versus somebody who would be happy just to break even if lucky enough to had they chosen to purchase during the height of the market. So if you're looking for opportunities or places that you might get a better deal or meet sellers and seller agents that have an appetite to be more aggressive on the negotiating side, I would look at properties that have been owned for a longer period of time.
And I think that's a really huge point. And just what I want to double down on is generally that's not going to be a seller under duress because they have so much equity built into the property. That's going to be a seller looking to probably make a transition in their life, either to leave the city or to move potentially from a condo into a house, seeing a bit of an opportunity on the freehold side. And so, again, going back into your point, Kori, I think it's always good to have your agent understand why the seller is selling that condo, given how long they've owned it for. And I think you'll see that if they're looking to make a transition, that's where the urgency will be, not specifically as a result of being under financial duress. And I think that's a great point that will lead us into our next point, where it's always important to understand your why, whether it's the seller's why or as a buyer, really what you're looking to achieve. Because I think people get very confused by all the negativity that's out there if you're a buyer, is to actually why you're looking to buy a property and what you're looking to accomplish, rather than get distracted by all the uncertainty with tariff talks and everything else that's out there. Cor, what are your thoughts on the why?
I think the why has to be personally for you, the person who's writing the check and the person who is going to be paying the monthly mortgage and the person who's going to be living in the property. This is not a decision for your family to be making, your colleagues to be making on your behalf, your grandparents, or your fellow team members. You need to make this about yourself. And it's very difficult, Ralph, as you mentioned, to tune out all the noise around you. And I remember when I bought my very first condo, which was years and years and years ago, when it was possible for a single person to do that, I bought pre-construction. And I remember so acutely how many people told me I made a really stupid decision and saying like, oh my God, the market's going to crash. What are you doing? And I remember sitting at my desk at work and like physically shaking, like my whole body would be shaking, thinking, oh my gosh, I just made a serious financially huge mistake for myself, which obviously at the time, and this is many years ago, was probably one of the best financial decisions I had ever made.
Yeah.
So figuring out your why is very important. And the why has to do with, how long do I plan on living in this city for? Is this my principal residence for 5, 10, 15 years? Is this a long-term hold or a short-term hold? Am I paying rent where I could be paying myself? Am I living at home and, I'm 30 years old and it's time for me to find some more independence in my life, and I'm willing to live in something smaller to establish that independence before I can move up the property ladder? Do I have a new relationship in my life and I want to explore that and live with somebody and perhaps share in these mortgage payments with somebody else and make that next step in my relationship? Do I want to walk to work, bike to work, drive to work? What does my commute look like? What kind of lifestyle do I want? Or, is there something better that you think is more exciting for yourself to do with the money, your hard-earned money that you've made and saved? And perhaps buying real estate is not the best decision for you. If you think that you might be moving to a new city for work, or you might be moving overseas for an opportunity, or you might be taking a couple of years off to travel, maybe buying right now is not the right decision for you. So figuring out all of those things for yourself is very important, and being peer pressured either way, whether it's to buy or not to buy, is something that's very difficult to do, but very important in the process.
Exactly. And in the past, we had seen FOMO as being a major driver to drive people into the market. And now we're seeing fear as a reason
Yes.
driving people not to go into the market or reconsider it. And the one thing that you said that was so interesting, Kori, going back to your experience when you bought that first condo and everyone told you not to do it, if you really want to have the same outcomes as everybody else, I'd highly recommend just to do what everybody tells you to do and just put your money in the bank account and see how that, savings goes, or do what they tell you to do with your education and see today where that takes you. I think if you want to do things that are different than everybody else, the first thing you should do is start doing the opposite, literally, of what everybody else is doing either way and tells you to do. And I think the real question that we can add is not just asking the question why, but maybe asking the question why not? And really looking, and if somebody tells you to do something, well, then understand, well, why shouldn't I do that? And I think that's a really good process that you have to make when you go through the decision making of whether you should be looking to buy in real estate right now or not, because there's some pretty good arguments that will show you over the long term why this could be a really good opportunity to buy, especially probably on the condo side if you're a first-time buyer. But that's something we can get into maybe in depth on another podcast. But those questions of why are so powerful, and there's so much distracting and conflicting information out there. Once you have your why, then you can lock in and you can be like, okay, well, this may not be investment driven, maybe it's lifestyle driven, or maybe it's future long-term investment driven. But once you have that why, everything else becomes noise and you're just following the signal. And the signal is, this is my mission. I've determined what it is, and I'm going to follow through. And that can be in real estate or anything else. But in this type of an environment in real estate, if you're going to be a buyer, you strongly need to know what your why is and look at everything else as a distraction once you've gone through that process. And for some people, that process is intuitive. For some other people, it's a month or 6 months. But really hammering down on that will help you move forward and ultimately make the right decision, or at least a decision you could look back on and be proud of because you did all of the right things before you executed.
I love that. And I totally agree. I think, Ralph, with us, when we've ever gone against the grain,
Yes.
those have generally been our best decisions, where we've had to be the most courageous and do what everyone else is not doing, which takes a lot of guts and balls and creativity and innovation, which I think are just qualities that people have just lost in general overall. So I totally appreciate that this would be a terrifying time to jump in with both feet. But I think, in 10 years' time, you might be laughing and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I did what everyone else is not doing. And that type of courage is completely respected. And of course, if you choose that this is not the avenue for you and you figured out your why for another purpose, I think that's amazing as well.
It's just so interesting that you say that, Kori, because the key thing that I focused on was when you said feet first. And I had a mentor who was a very successful real estate investor. He's no longer with us. And his motto was feet first. And he came from very humble beginnings. And this will lead us into our next point, but if you trust your gut and you've done the research and everything lines up, you're never going to be able to put life on a spreadsheet. And you're never, especially today and on the short term, going to be able to predict the future. And so if things line up, if things make sense, feet first, you jump out and you figure it out on the way. It is the only way. And it's one thing that, really is a pediment to most people moving forward in life is our next point, which is falling into analysis paralysis.
Oh.
And it's so interesting because we work with so many different people and we get to see how they make decisions under duress. And we see so many people falling into analysis paralysis. And it's one of the things that's so interesting because I think one of our strengths, Kori, in life is we're very quick decision makers and we don't really hum and haw for too long, and for better or for worse, because not all of our decisions have panned out. But for the most part, they have, because we've gone on instinct and we've really looked at things. And if things feel right, we've made a very quick decision because we're trying to work on that muscle so that we can make more decisions. And the more decisions you make leads you theoretically to more opportunities. Whereas falling into analysis paralysis is a very deadly trap that we've seen a lot of people end up in, and it has not served them well, be it in real estate or in life. Kori?
Yes, I think that right now it would be even easier to fall into analysis paralysis than even in a more robust, highly moving market, because there is inventory to fall back on if an opportunity slips by. So sometimes when you have so much selection, it's even
Yes.
harder to drill down into something that speaks to you, because you don't feel any sense of urgency and or the feeling that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, because and this is the truth, is that there will be more inventory coming out next week and there will be another opportunity for you. So because we're not working in that FOMO environment, it's almost like there's just too much out there. There's no sense of urgency. There's no deadline to make a decision. And when that happens, I think this is when people get trapped by their spreadsheets, crunching numbers, over comparing one opportunity to another, over analyzing market statistics, media headlines, very pulled in towards looking at the cons versus the pros, generally speaking. And then time will just continue to tick by. And in 6 months or 12 months or 18 months, you still haven't made a decision. And that is totally okay if that's your process. I'm not suggesting you have to do it any faster than that, but that's less time than you're paying yourself if you choose to buy. And again, I'm not saying that you have to buy before the comment sections blow up about that, but it's also telling, and if you believe in stuff like this, is just telling your worldview or your universe or however way you want to describe it, that you don't deserve to make a decision for yourself and you're okay in life to hum and haw about everything. And I think it's a pattern that you don't really want to fall into, because it will just showcase or teach yourself that that's how you can make decisions about everything. And you don't want to live life sort of stuck in that kind of groove from my perspective.
For sure. It's fear. And it's fear of making a mistake, which causes you to not move forward with anything. And as any successful person will tell you, it's the mistakes that have led people to the greatest outcomes or victories in life. And it's not what defines somebody as successful is not how the successes they have, but how they've responded to their failures. And if you're okay with making a mistake or having a failure, then you'll be able to move on much quicker. If you do make a mistake, learn from it and grow. And it's one of the things that I just feel so sad for people in their decision-making process, where they're so overcome by fear that they're not able to move forward. And again, it goes back to your why. And if your why is totally aligned with moving forward with a lifestyle decision or something that progresses you forward, and that's a real estate decision, then I would focus on that. I would extrapolate out all the noise. I would take it right out of the equation, surround yourself with the best people, and move forward. And yes, feet first is the only way you're going to get ahead. And you can look at any great entrepreneur, any great investor, the risks that they took in hindsight might not seem like a risk, but at the time, I'm sure they were quite significant in most instances, because there is no such thing in life as a sure thing. And if you wait for that sure thing, you're going to sit there and you're going to watch life pass you by. So I think this leads into our next really great point, which is trying to time the bottom of the market, because that's just an impossibility. And the reason why I say that is you never actually know that the market has bottomed out until it's on its way back up. And if you look at some of the economists at when they actually know that there has been a recession, they will usually only be in some type of consensus or agreement until a year or two after the fact, when they're like, yep, this period here definitely was a recession. but it's never really at the time. And there will be so many disagreements over what the definition is or what the various factors are. But you never really know that we've hit a bottom until we're well beyond it. And so I really wouldn't try to focus on it. If you do, you could end up like some of the great investors, real estate investors of all time, the Reichmans with Olympia in New York, and you look at what happened with them in the UK with trying to time the market. If you try and time the market, you're going to miss it. And in my experience, and I think Kori, you can weigh in as well, the clients that we've had that have tried to time the market, we had once had these clients and they were so trying to time when they went to sale, they actually ended up going to market March 2020. And it did not bode too well. We got it done in the end, but they overthought it and they over tried to time it. And life can be really funny when you try and overthink things. I really wouldn't focus on that as much as trying to understand that, yes, we are in a downward pocket of the market or of the cycle. If you look at the 30-year history or 40-year history of the Toronto real estate market, and if you can acknowledge that and lock it in with your why and it aligns, then it's a good time to probably make a decision to move forward. Cor, what are your thoughts on timing the market?
I'm going to say the exact same thing. I think that we can acknowledge right now that we're currently in some form of a buyer's market, particularly on the condo side. Not to say it might still continue to roll down even further because we do have quite a bit of inventory out there and more supply coming from new construction. So that's not to say that we're in the bottom right now, but we're definitely in an opportune time. And I think that's great as a buyer if you choose to buy, because as we mentioned in the former segments, you can do your due diligence. You can figure out what works best for you. You can attach it to your why. You can add conditions to your offer. You can ask for concessions. You can visit the property more than one time. You can have a deal, whatever that means to you and to the seller as well. You can negotiate proper terms. You can ask for a longer closing date if you need more time to save up a bit more money for your closing costs. So I would say right now is pretty close or coming close to the bottom-ish, whenever that might be, because I know we can't time it on the condo side. And on the low-rise side, which is a lot friskier and a bit more challenging, and depends on your price point, location, and what you want, I still think we're not in an aggressive market like we were 3 years ago where things were selling within an hour. So if your goal is to acquire a low-rise property, an entry-level low-rise property under $2 million, I still think this is an amazing time to have a little bit of time on your side to find something that you actually want in a location that you want. It might not be perfect, but it will check a lot of those boxes. And waiting on the sidelines for something to happen, again, sort of to go back to the analysis paralysis piece, is never a great place to live. And sometimes you just have to grab life by the horns and get it done.
Awesome. And one of the things, as you were talking, it made me think about, I'll share with our viewers, is Kori and I bought a pretty significant investment property in 2017. And if you're around and paying attention to the Toronto real estate market in 2017, the Wynne government came out and made this big announcement provincially that really didn't do anything other than lock in further price appreciation. But in the moment, it scared everyone and the market saw a dip. So we bought a big investment property. The market went down maybe 3 to 5% very quickly for a period of 6 months. And then it shot right back up. And if you look back at the price we paid for that property in 2017 to today, which is 2025, that further dip that we had right after we bought the property is completely irrelevant. And so if you're buying a property on a long-term time horizon and you have utility for that property, meaning it's going to make your life better, it's going to get you a better school district, it's going to help you downsize, it's going to help you maintain your costs better, it's going to help you get into a better school district or have more space or have an extra bedroom for a child on the way, or get you into a location that you've always wanted to be in a smaller footprint. I mean, there's a million different reasons why that could be something that could elevate your life. And knowing that in a downward market, in 5 years from now, when there's no new inventory coming out for another 5 to 7 years, you're going to be in a very good position. And so I think if you just stop trying to day trade real estate and look at it from a long-term perspective, and you look at the historical context that we are now in, I think you'll be in a much stronger position to move forward, or at least make an informed decision rather than think about it from a day trader standpoint, which is all based on emotion and fear.
I love that.
And greed.
I wanted to just also, I'm not sure if it fits right in with this segment, but I did want to mention this earlier. So, and it does have to do with timing the market. Let's just say you
Kori, I
are,
have to interrupt you. It seems like your sinus is clearing up.
oh, maybe your trick worked. I do feel quite a bit better, actually.
For anyone watching, I've had allergies for a number of years, and I've used something called Dymista. You have to get a prescription for it, but it literally cured all my allergies. And I no longer have them. And Kori's never really had allergies, and she's been sniffling so much before we started filming. I'm like, why don't you try the Dymista? And you seem better.
I know, I do. Good point. I like that you highlighted that. Before I lose my train of thought, I just wanted to say, I can't help but think about my nasal congestion right now. I feel so clear. I can think again.
You seem so clear.
Yeah. If you are approved for, let's say, $1.5 million from your mortgage broker, this does not mean you need to spend $1.5 million on your house. Like, you can always be more conservative with your acquisition, which I think in this market right now is really good advice to take. So, say you're approved to get a condo for up to $850. Why don't you buy a condo for $675 instead? And limit some of that fear that you might have about, the down payment and then the monthly mortgage costs. And then you're giving yourself a little bit of buffer in terms of just the economy ebb and flow and some of the unknowns that are, occurring in the short term right now, by sort of just pulling back on your budget slightly. And this just gives you a little bit more wiggle room and a bit more peace of mind that you're not like overpaying. You're giving yourself a little bit of that buffer. And then it also is not forcing you into living house poor, where, your entire paycheck goes towards your mortgage and monthly expenses. Why don't you just give yourself, a portion of your paycheck towards your mortgage, and the rest can go into, stocks or bonds or something a little bit more conservative that you feel like is protecting you off just a little bit. If that is your style, you don't have to max out your mortgage pre-approval. And I think that would be really helpful right now to a lot of buyers that are sitting on the sidelines, because there are opportunities out there, and you don't have to go full tilt to get something right now. You don't have to overpay.
And the other thing I would just like to add to that, maybe as we start to wrap up, if you're feeling a little nervous, if you're buying in a good location, you'll never go wrong. And if you're buying in a gentrifying location, then you'll set yourself up for greater opportunity in the future, i.e., transit coming into an area, or a lot of development coming into an area where you're seeing gentrification. Those are things to be thinking about from an investment perspective, even if you're buying for lifestyle purposes, how to protect your downside, because this will pass. It'll probably be really disappointing to some of the people watching this or in our comments section, but it isn't the end of the world. We haven't seen a real estate apocalypse in Toronto, nor are we going to. Is there going to be choppy? Is there going to be ups and downs? Is there going to be continued softness? Yes. But if you're a potential buyer, that is the opportunity that you should be looking for, knowing what it's been like to try and buy something in Toronto over the last 15 years.
Yes.
And there you have it.
There you have it. Oh my gosh.
There you have it.
This is like our quickest conversation we've ever had, Ralph.
And maybe our clearest. Wink,
and even
wink.
our clearest. I love that.
All right.
Well, as we're wrapping up, I can see all of these text messages coming in through my preview from our stylists that are currently on site somewhere working on a big project. And so I'm desperate to go check to see and make sure that everything is going okay. So I'm like, focus. I'm like giving myself a little
Yeah.
side conversation. Focus on
This is
Ralph.
behind the scenes right here at Fox Marin.
Exactly.
Listen, Kori, thank you so much for joining. If you're watching and you've actually made it to the end, sinus stories and all, thank you so much once again for tuning in. Please be sure to hit that like or subscribe button. It really helps our algorithm and get our story out there to more people. So we really appreciate you tuning in. If you have any comments and they're all above the waist, we'd love to hear from you in the comments section. Kori gets really stressed about the negative ones. I don't care so much. I just appreciate the engagement.
Except you're always telling me to delete the negative ones. Let's just be all
when
real.
they're really bad. There's one guy I'm thinking about right now. But we don't have to get into that. Thank you so much for tuning in for the Toronto Real Estate Podcast. We will catch you next week. And just remember, make quick decisions, feet first, and we got you.
This. Exactly.
That's it.
Thanks,
Okay.
everyone. Thanks, Ralph.